My name is James Kafieh. I'm Vice President of Palestinian Canadian Congress. It's a national secular organization representing the Palestinian Canadian community. In my private life, I'm a legal clinic lawyer, which provides legal clinics across Ontario, provide free services to people on the margins of society. Every single day, I have the honor working with Jewish Canadians to fight racism and bigotry. And I want you to understand how important that is for me. And when we talk about the IHRA definition, we have to understand that this particular definition is convoluted and controversial, even controversial within the Jewish community, as you've heard. We have a working definition, which means it's subject to change. We have 11 non-binding examples, all that adopt the IHRA definition find very quickly that they can't ignore the examples, and the devil is in the details. 7 of the 11 examples of anti-Semitism are about Israel, a political entity, a state. The IHRA definition isn't about fighting anti-Semitism. It's about silencing legitimate criticism of Israel. One of the 7 examples of anti-Semitism says that if you say that Israel is a racist enterprise, that you're promoting anti-Semitism. Well, I think Israel is a racist enterprise. However, you might not take my word for it. I understand that completely. However, you have to acknowledge that the 2 most respected international human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, have found in extensive reports that Israel is an apartheid state that persecutes Palestinians. In fact, the same conclusion is drawn by Israel's 2 most respected human rights organizations, B'Tselem and Yesh Din. There are over 65 Israeli laws that discriminate directly or indirectly against Palestinian citizens in Israel itself, or Palestinians certainly residing in the occupied territories. They have no rights whatsoever. But the question I would put to you is, how would you describe a state that has 65 laws that directly or indirectly are designed to discriminate against the people who are not part of the privileged identity? In other words, they privilege Jews against non-Jews. And if there was one law in Canada or anywhere in the world that directly or even indirectly discriminated against Jews, we would all correctly, roundly condemn that. Telling Palestinians that they're not allowed to say that Israel is a racist endeavor in view of what we've just discussed is the equivalent of telling Black people who might complain about apartheid-era South Africa's policies to simply dismiss them as saying that they're anti-white racists. It's outrageous. By adopting the IHRA definition, the Waterloo Region District School Board would be politicizing the classroom. You'd be introducing censorship and indoctrination. You'd be undermining academic freedom, which is fundamental to our success in our schools, and you'd be exchanging all of that for a toxic classroom. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board staff confirmed to the Palestinian Canadian Congress that there are 22 places in existing Ontario curriculum where Israel-Palestine issues, including conflict and human rights issues, can be covered. They could be included, but they are avoided. They're already being avoided because there's so much intimidation of the teaching staff. They're afraid to delve into these subjects or even to have their students discuss these subjects in the classroom. People need to be able to see themselves in the curriculum. We have a very, very diverse student population. It must be served properly. People have to be able to see themselves. We have witnessed certainly in many jurisdictions that Palestinian students, even wearing a Palestinian scarf into the classroom, have received censure. The Palestinian identity is political. When I say to you, I'm Palestinian, then it's a real issue. In fact, there was a prime minister, Golda Meir of Israel, an Israeli prime minister, who said, there's no such thing as Palestinians. And this is part of negating the indigenous population of Palestine, which is a fundamental technique used by all European colonial settler states. The IHRA definition corrupts all institutions that adopt it. And again, perhaps the best example is the Toronto District School Board itself. There was a resource teacher who was attacked for providing educational material, part of an equity program. He was an advisor on the subject. It was on an opt-in basis, and he was attacked for doing that. He was called anti-Semitic. In fact, he was attacked in the media and by no one less than a trustee of the Toronto District School Board. Well, the resource teacher was investigated and exonerated, but the important point here is that there was a complaint about the trustee. The independent integrity commissioner that the Toronto District School Board retained found that the trustee's conduct served to, quote, perpetuate harmful anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian tropes by tying generally pro-Palestinian discourse to anti-Semitism and violence. This is exactly what the IHRA definition does. This isn't just an isolated example. The anti-Palestinian racism that exists in school boards today, I'm not speaking specifically to any trustee in Waterloo region, but I want to give the example of another case that's on a higher level. In Ontario, we have something called grade 10 civics. We have a grade 10 civics course online. And part of that included 4 presentations in a speaker's corner module. One was a student speaking about his experience with anti-Black racism. Another spoke about child sweatshops. Another spoke about alternative approaches to learning. There was another one, a 4th one, by a student named Naj, who presented on Israel-Palestine issues. And he spoke for about 2 minutes and 43 seconds. The presentation, in my opinion, was measured and accurate. He said that Palestinians live under an illegal Israeli occupation. That's Canadian foreign policy. Israeli occupation is violent in nature. You can see that for yourselves. Resistance to the occupation is understandable. That's common sense. Many more Palestinians than Israelis had died from the conflict. That also is a matter of just straightforward statistics. He even ended his presentation saying that when the occupation ends, this will create a way for both Palestinians and Israelis to live in equality, human rights, and in peace. And this was labeled and attacked as anti-Semitic. The Minister of Education himself was crowing on Twitter that same day that he took the segment down from the curriculum that same day. In fact, they rooted out the entire presentation by all 4 students. The entire section was taken out, which tells us that it begins with Palestinians and Muslims maybe, but it moves on, and eventually all of us suffer. All of us have a diminished educational experience because of this kind of approach, and it goes right up to the minister's office. The Speaker's Corner ironically stated that in a democratic society, you may hear things that you disagree with, and the answer is to express your own opinion, not to seek to silence others. This is a valuable lesson, I think, that the Minister of Education would have benefited from had he paid attention to the curriculum before he simply had the whole section torn out of the curriculum. Free speech is the foundation of our freedoms, our rights in our society. Now, it's often said, well, if Ottawa and Queen's Park passed the IHRA definition, why shouldn't Waterloo Region District School Board trustees do that? Well, you have a special responsibility. You're not the same as other elected officials. You don't pander to special interest groups. You don't reward your friends and punish your enemies. You have responsibility for the stewardship of a school board. You must serve all students in an equitable and inclusive manner. You can't fight.
Excuse me, Mr. Kafieh, you have 1 minute. 1 minute remaining.
You can't fight racism and bigotry with a definition steeped in racism and bigotry. That's no solution. There's a reason why University of Toronto soundly refused the IHRA definition and why the Canadian Association of University Teachers unanimously rejected it. It has no place anywhere near an institution of learning that serves a democratic society. This anti-Palestinian racism is at least as serious a problem as anti-Semitism in our schools, and I urge you to end the IHRA definition, end it at the Waterloo Region District School Board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Weston. Just to clarify, when you were saying that adopting the IHRA definition also by effect can lead to censorship of other issues, per the example you gave with the 4 students speaking in a civics class, is that correct?
Yes, it undermines everybody's educational experience. This isn't just an issue about Palestinian Canadians or about Muslim Canadians, Arab Canadians. It's about the educational experience that all Canadians will have. We have to protect the integrity of the educational process. What we have, if you adopt IHRA, you're fundamentally introducing censorship and indoctrination rather than a proper educational process. You need to have a system in place that respects the professionalism of teaching staff and also recognizes the intelligence of the student population. And you have to give them academic freedom to be able to discuss these issues. How else will you develop a student population that has the capacity for critical thought to deal with the existential issues of our times? So they are going to be electing governments. They're going to be dealing with all kinds of critical issues. And if we're going to simply coddle their minds and prevent them from being able to explore issues in our classrooms, this isn't the only controversial issue that might come up in the classroom. You have to be able to deal with these things if you're going to live in a modern society. We have to prepare our young people with a proper education that strengthens their mind, and doesn't simply subject them to silence by muzzling them. Thank you.